This is the voice of Agrat, and you are listening to the Love Potion podcast with T. Davy and Billy Cakes.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Billy Cakes here for episode 11 of the Love Potion podcast. I am, as always, joined by my compadre, T. Davy. Davy, how are you doing? It's a little bit of a rainy Sunday, March 22nd, that we're recording this, but it's good to be back.
You said rainy, and then I looked outside to my left. It was sunny and beautiful earlier, and now the clouds have descended upon me as well. So,
Well, you do live in England.
Yes, that is true. Honestly, it's been good. I'm just trying to settle back into life after a little bit of traveling this month for my partner's work. So, I'm just a glorified chauffeur, really.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I get to explore some different cities and do some fun stuff while she's at work. So, that was good. I had a great time in the football museum, so that was all nice.
Is that like the major football museum for like EPL or something, or is it just a random one?
It's called the National Football Museum up in Manchester.
Okay.
Obviously, if you go to like different stadiums, they've got their own like museums like attached. And then I think there's probably some big ones down in London as well, where like Wembley is, like the home of England, stuff like that. But yeah, there was a big museum, had a load of trophies and fun little facts and stuff about it. So it was well worth doing. It was 15 quid, and you get to keep the ticket for a year. So I thought, yeah, why not?
That's not bad.
No,
It's
pretty good. Yeah, I was looking for like a Hall of Fame, but we don't really do that over here.
Yeah, well, right now there's the controversy, right, about Jack Hughes wanting the golden goal puck from the men's ice hockey, and it's currently in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, and it actually belongs to the Hockey Hall and the IIHF, and there's been a whole bunch of stuff online about that, which is funny because perspective is interesting on it. People think that he should have it, and then you have Sidney Crosby, whose golden goal stuff from 16 years ago is in the Hall, and he just doesn't care.
Yeah, really weird side tangent. Do you know, we're quite into like collectors, and like we see stuff that collectors do, and obviously sports cards do the whole like they put jerseys in cards and like things like that. Can you imagine a shaving of that puck in a hockey card?
No, but that would be cool.
Why? That's what I was thinking. I was like, what a one of one Jack Hughes.
Oh God.
Yeah, and with like a shaving of that puck in it.
The market for that would be ridiculous, I think.
That would be so much money. That'd be really cool though. I don't know if they do that in baseball or not. I know they do the jerseys. Do they do bits of bat?
Probably not. But I know that you can get like you can collect like who is it? Geddy Lee from Rush, Canadian rock band Rush.
Yeah.
He has a huge baseball collection of like balls, bats, cards.
Yeah.
I think it's like very, very impressive. I mean, collecting in general, I mean, if you have the income and you have the time to dedicate to it, it was interesting because we did have a pretty decent little conversation with NLT about collecting. So I mean, everyone has their own thing. You've got cards, I've got Lego and books. I guess those are my two things right now, even though I'm trying to downsize the Lego. Collections take up so much space.
They do. That's why I've such Pokemon cards. They're quite small. Anyway, massive side tangent. We probably should talk about the what we're meant to be doing.
Yeah. That's earlier this month we interviewed Kinky Fridays, who is an adult game developer.
Company.
His current project. Yeah, company, right. We spoke with the lead, I guess, developer about the current project that's on Steam, which is Sapphire Safari. It's kind of like a not safe for work Pokemon Snap. So it's a little bit in the not a little bit. It is the in the furry genre. But I enjoyed the conversation we had with, was it Henley, right? He went by. He talked a lot about expectations when developing a game and the business side of things a fair bit. What did you primarily take from that, Davey?
Yeah, so we did that like 21 days ago at this point, because
Yeah.
hopefully, we don't know, but hopefully he did have a flight planned to Australia, but that looks like it was going to go up the shindig with a layover in the Middle East somewhere. I took away the way he was very, very honest about the business side of things that people don't always talk about, and how some of the projects that have been labeled abandoned on Steam by some users are not actually abandoned. They're just having a slower development rate because it wasn't worth the money or time to have a full dedicated team to that project anymore. And financially, they had to move on to something new.
Yeah. I mean, the business side of things is so important because you need to earn the income to be able to continue to develop. So, like he said, and like you just said, I mean, you're not going to put the time into something that's not necessarily thriving. And right now, it seems like Sapphire Safari is doing pretty well, I think.
He's at 1.6 million users on Steam, so I'm saying it's doing pretty well.
He talked a lot about working with Steam and, what developers, or at least new developers, when entering this kind of niche market, can have to navigate pending the type of content that they're making, because Steam and certain other avenues have specific guidelines, which everyone has their thoughts on in this type of lane that we're in. His main thing was just like, do what Steam will support, and they're fantastic to work with. So he had really nothing but positive things to say about Steam.
Yeah, which is another nice side of a conversation we've not really had yet with a developer. We haven't actually spoke too deeply about what it's like to deal day to day with Steam or have meetings with them. And then on the flip side, he, bit of a spoiler about the conversation, he spoke about Itch, saying that they're not manned well enough to run the site that they need to run, and they found frustrations over there. So yeah, some great conversations to come up later in the episode. I think it's like an hour and 20, that interview, so I'm sure you guys will get plenty out of that, as well as all the other projects that he's created or is creating as a team, and how he got into the industry. But first up, we do have the casual catch-up to get through for you casual tier supporters. As always, we do encourage you guys to give us your thoughts on the update. You can DM it to us, or you can throw it in the patrons chat, or whatever you want. Just let us know what you think of the game so far, just so we have a little bit more talking points as well. Billy, do you want to just run through the first plot point?
Yeah. The hunt for Agrat. We've got Leila and Lola, and Nia's on the periphery, I think, at the start of the update. Agrat's obviously a very key player in this game.
Yeah.
So they want to get her oracle and kind of have possession of it. I can't remember exactly who's in possession of it at the start of the update. But
I think it's Agrat herself. They're trying to just track down Agrat, aren't they?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, things are jumping around all over the place, and we're revisiting this however long since it's been released. So you're doing sets for the update that's coming out April 2nd. You're helping with that kind of stuff, so that's what's currently in development. So it does kind of feel interesting to look back at the chapters. The major thing I would say with this update was what happens kind of in the middle, which is all the drama with the Millers, and there's a bunch of drama with that. Do you want to kind of touch on that piece? Because the first scene is in the scene player, scene 74 is with Julia, and obviously her and Daniel are not in a good spot, which leads to a fun time.
It's a weird dynamic, that whole household, isn't it? Because it's almost like Julia and Grace are trying to bide for Ethan's attention themselves.
Yep.
And then I think Julia's showing her a little bit more maturity because she's not being quite as spiteful about it. And Grace is just trying to throw Julia under the bus to get what she wants, which is Ethan. and then that kind of causes more of a problem, if anything, because Daniel doesn't react the way Grace wants, but also the way Julia wants, because Julia wants him to show a little bit more care.
And spoiler, I mean, it's been out now for a little bit, is Daniel comes out of the closet. And that's I think some people suspected that he's gay.
Yeah.
I think it's been heavily teased at in the game so far. And him finally naming it and feeling, confident about, or getting more confident about who he is a positive step for him. Admittedly, he only does this directly to Ethan, so everyone else, in his family probably doesn't know 100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the other thing with Daniel is he's obviously very infatuated with God, and that may not just.
Well, he's very religious, so it's an interesting balance, isn't it?
He's very religious, but yeah, but now it's like, God probably loves all, right? So God probably has no sexual orientation. So maybe Daniel and God are gonna get it on in the future. I don't know. It's funny to think about. That's a thought I've had in my head.
I have not had that thought, but yeah, that'd be an interesting one.
Right? Just because they're it seems like they're going to be hanging out a little bit.
Because God is quite sassy, isn't he?
Yeah, and sassy, silly.
Yeah, and then that leads to Daniel trying to cook dinner for God and setting the kitchen on fire. So, Did you enjoy the little mini game with that? Try to move the characters around and then bouncing the barrels off them.
I mean, I'm playing on easy just for efficiency's sake. But I mean, I did it on the first go. I didn't really struggle.
I think that's the one thing for us is because we play Treasure and Audio. When you see a puzzle like that and you see characters standing there, I think our minds immediately go, "Oh, we just use the characters."
Time to move people around.
Yeah, because that was a huge part of Treasure and Audio.
Yeah, we're getting a good mix of that stuff in now into this as we get later into this game.
And the more I work closely with NLT on the way that he builds and designs these puzzles, they're so much more complicated than I thought. Like one little, like the amount of work that goes into some of these fights. I think we spent like 45 minutes just designing one fight the other day, which we'll talk about in a future update. But yeah, that's all these little things. They take so much effort for him as well.
Well, and the fact that it's done once a month with extra stuff sprinkled in between. Haters are going to hate just because of the efficiency, even if it's not content that they want. But anyway, you have God who's, you said a little sassy and silly. The opposite of sassy and silly is serious, which is what Athena is. And she shows up at the Miller's house. And we see her blow up the minivan.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I think you're meant to dislike Athena at this point, right? Because she just seems like a bit of an ass.
Well, she also starts torturing Agrat.
Yeah, that was I was not expecting that. I know we see the scripts and stuff, but I didn't know how brutal that was going to be. I was like, oh, that's a dark turn.
Their dynamic is interesting.
Yeah.
And then a result of that is we get another scene with Leila and Agrat. As, I think it's Leila's trying to help Agrat because she's weakened. And obviously has grown attached to the long-haired, dark-featured demon.
It's helped Leila come out of her shell, hasn't it?
Yeah, Leila's not my favorite character, as we've talked about, like attractiveness wise, but she's definitely helping move the plot forward for sure when it comes to the human characters.
Yeah, definitely.
The fourth scene, I'm kind of going through them a little quickly, but I think just kind of talking where things are at is never a bad thing.
No.
We get a final scene with Mia solo in the management room at, was it Big Things in Food, BTF? I'm just thinking about YouTube censorship with words here. big bleep and food. That's a good scene. Getting a nice solo one with Nia. The other main plot points that are going on, right, is about the gate to Limbo and having that transportation method available.
And it being rebuilt, yes.
Yeah, Athena's needed that.
Well, you also get Athena reunited with the serpent.
I can't remember the serpent's name. It always escapes me.
Yes, and that whole dynamic and how it's just like, I've waited for you, master, and stuff like that. And I like the way that like the serpent and the god have a laugh, like go at each other a little bit as well. That's a fun dynamic. And then they're the ones that have to like rebuild the gate together, which is all good. And it ends up with Agrat being Even's new guide character, because she reveals that Medusa and Athena have control over the nuke together, which I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah.
And Agrat is now the good person, I think.
I don't necessarily think someone's good or someone's bad with a lot of these characters, right? Like they can be interpreted either way.
She has her own motives, I guess.
Yes, that's the main thing, right? I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the nuke, for sure. So, I mean, I don't know is it going to get used, or is it just going to kind of be like this tool to have people get to whatever they want to get to in terms of their goals?
Yeah,
it's all very interesting. It was a good update. I think scene-wise, it was good. I mean, we got a good Julia update. I like seeing Agrat, and the Nia one was also not bad. We've obviously had conversations on the Discord about people asking and talking about the use of AI in the scenes, so it's becoming a little bit more prevalent now, because we saw the one with Nia where she's like wiping off the table, and then with Julia it's about like removing the clothes, and there's reasons for that.
Yeah, and they're just being used as like transition. So instead of the game fading to black, because when I spoke back with Joriel, you can't have an animation that's too long for this game engine because it doesn't like it. So you have to break them up, and the way that NLT's been breaking them up for ages is just to fade to black. And we're gonna have a deeper conversation in a couple of months with Ramsey about AI, because he's been doing a lot of the work around AI, I think is the way to do it, building scenes with AI to then fill in gaps. So he's thinking a little bit more outside of the box with his animations. He's going to talk about that process and like the ethics of using AI, which is a hot topic around the world at the moment. But
definitely.
Yeah, like the removing of clothes of Julia is something that, by the sounds of it, the animation team, it's just not. I don't know if it's impossible. It's just not viable
with the software.
Yeah, and I'm sure they could do it, and I'm sure Garrett said something about how it could be done, but it probably is not worth their time or effort. It would take way too long.
And that was one of the things. Sorry, going into the game, we had talked about like, oh, what could be done differently to like enhance things, and it was like being able to see articles of clothing be removed instead of it just cutting from one to the other, kind of thing. So it is nice that we're getting that. Obviously, AI is not as polished enough that consistency is always necessarily going to be a piece of the scene when you're seeing it. And what I mean by that is like, characters' bodies may look a little different when you're having that transition. Obviously, with AI in general, like fingers are subject to being accurate and things of that nature. So it's just interesting, because I think it's a good thing to have, because it just makes things a little bit more immersive. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I don't know what everyone else's thoughts are on it. It seems like no one's majorly is complaining in terms of supporters, because I think once you see the logic behind it, it does make sense.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions about it in the Discord, please come ask, and we'll answer it the best we can. We're not going to lie about it. We learned that from Henley at Kinky Fridays. Honesty is the best policy, and being open is great. You talked about immersion. I was replaying the game last week because of a couple of bugs reported early on in the game, and I was just testing. And I remember Tom from our interview of Adult Games Review, he said about characters having their shoes on in bed, and there's a scene where Ethan at the Miller's house has his shoes on in bed, and I'm just like, oh no.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, when the first couple of nights he stays over, he crashes fully dressed on top of the covers with his shoes on, and I'm just like, I might just put it in the quality of life tweaks. Can we have Ethan undress it? Get under the covers? Question mark.
Yeah. Hey, AI could probably be used for that if people really want that immersion.
Yeah.
I get Ethan's going to sleep, but is he actually getting into bed to sleep?
Yeah.
Because I don't see him fully getting into bed, and it ruins my immersion.
I've seen some people who are like, bro, does Ethan eat?
These are the things, right?
Does he shower?
How come there's no bathroom in his place? Same thing with
oh, there's a bathroom in his apartment.
Is there?
Yeah, because that's where you trap Cleo early in the story.
It's Henry that doesn't have a bathroom.
Yeah, it's Henry that didn't have a bathroom.
Why doesn't he have a bathroom? Oh god. Anyway, I think now's a good time to move into our interview with Kinky Fridays. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to hear it. So we'll have a little bit of a musical interlude, and we'll be back. Okay, we are back from that short break. I would like to thank Danko for setting up this interview with a wonderful special guest. Special guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Henley, or Dave, whatever you prefer. I'm easy there. I'm a industry veteran who's recently turned to making adult games. So it is not the only award I have won, but it is the only one that we'll talk about today, I suppose. So, yeah. So I've been making games for just over 20 years now, and I've been making adult games since 2019. Definitely been around the block, as it were, when it comes to games and such. So
nice. Well, we're happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Sapphire Safari, which is kind of like a not safe for work version of Pokemon Snap.
Okay, let me take you back to a time called 2001. Okay. So picture this. Newgrounds is this fascinating website, the Wild West of the internet, you could call it. There was a Flash compilation animation that was made by I think it was 20 odd Flash animators, and one of them was a a little segment. It was a collaboration to make fun of Nintendo games, basically, parody Nintendo products and stuff like that. And one of the segments was from a developer called Nintendo, who made a animation called Pokemon Snap XXX.
Okay.
And it was something that my teenage self saw, and then it just kind of stayed in my brain for a very long time. Fast forward to 2019. I'm, developed as a developer, and I've done a lot of video games and tried a lot of things. And I thought to myself, why not try make the hardest game on the face of the planet to make fun, which was an open world photography game. And, the rest is history, essentially. So Sapphire Safari is an open world photography adventure collection based game. There's a lot of elements in there. There's a lot of stealth elements. There's a lot of action elements. but we mostly focused on designing the game to be really good for the collection type mentality that gamers have. The sort of the dopamine hit that you get when you check off everything on an open world adventure game, right? That's the sort of aspect that we were focusing on when we developed it. And we originally went through 5 revisions of the game because, as it turns out, making photography fun is really, really difficult. The games that have tried to do this in the past, it's never been their main criteria for the game, if that makes sense. There's always like, oh, you can do this, and then there's some photography on the side or whatever, right? But trying to make the entire mechanism of the game around photography and make that also interesting and fun has been very complicated. We originally started off by 100% aping Pokemon Snap, which was on rails. You're in a little Kajiga and you drive around and you take photos. And it turns out the moment we made that prototype, it was boring. It was very, very boring. So we went back to the drawing board. The next prototype was same deal, sort of open world, but you could choose which path you wanted to go down, kind of like a MOBA, where they have like different lanes on the map and you could go down the different lanes and stuff like that. Again, very boring. The next iteration we went to was a massive open world map where you sort of run around, kind of similar to how it was today, but like way less refined. There was a lot of problems with that. And we didn't really like the team that we were working with at the time, especially the animator. So then we scrapped all of that and then started from scratch again. This time focused on a first person. Yeah, it was first person this time. And it was kind of like a small islands that you would traverse around, and you have a limited amount of photos, and then you would have to go back to the boat when you finished with it. And it was a very limiting experience. And then we moved on to the current iteration that we're on right now, which is open world, first and third person. And we just sort of focused on making the photography loop incredibly satisfying. And turns out it's what people wanted, because the concept of the game has been something that a lot of people have wanted, and we've been able to iterate on that process for years. And that's not normal. Normally you make a video game, it's like 1 to 2 years development time, and if it works, it works. But Sapphire was an incredible journey because we've been able to iterate because it's what people want. People want that game, and they're willing to help us get through the iteration process to find the game. And we went on to Steam, and it blew up, and a lot of people like it. So
I have so many follow-up questions from that, but I'm gonna start. I'm going to start by saying I obviously downloaded the demo for Sapphire Safari to do a little bit of research to play it, and then I messaged Danko and I was like, can I get a key to play the early access of this? And the flavor of your content is not something that typically I would be lured into. And I even went down and told my partner, I was like, look, I'm going to be playing this game. It's for work. It's for research. Please don't come upstairs and judge me. This is not my style thing, but I understand that other people have that thing, and that's more power to them. You can do whatever you want. And I started playing it, and I was like, this gameplay loop is so addictive. It's incredibly addictive, and I just fell in love. And I sat here for like 6 hours playing it, when I thought I'll just be on it for like an hour or so, pick up a couple of questions, and then move on. And I was like, nope, I actually really enjoy this gameplay loop. And I found myself trying to hunt for like them photos. And I just want to say congratulations on building something that is so unique in that aspect.
The power of iteration,
Yeah,
that's what that is. Work it till it's shiny,
Yeah, you said you've gone through a lot of iterations. In my research, it said that you started on the Unreal Engine 4 and you're now on the newer engine, which is Unreal Engine 5. What were the reasons behind this, and what has the newer engine really unlocked for you?
Okay, so specifically when it comes to like, the best thing you can do as a game developer is not like expand on an engine, like not change an engine, because there's a lot of groundwork that goes into making an engine like work, right? Specifically with Unreal Engine, they have this really annoying habit of updating it, and there's not a lot of what's the word here? There's not a lot of documentation on the systems and stuff that they add in newer versions, right? So the Unreal Engine specifically, it's not just Unreal Engine 5 and then Unreal Engine 6. It's Unreal Engine 5 point dot 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 dot, right? And with Unreal Engine 5 specifically, we held off for the longest time because there was a lot of like, for example, just an example, Unreal Engine 4 has a mannequin, which is a skeleton inside of a model, essentially. And they added 3 spine bones from the jump from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, which meant that we had to rework specifically a lot of the animations related to posture or movement. And as you can imagine, in an adult game, that's pretty much everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of systems like that were just like hard to come over from. So when we made the jump, it was literally like a clean slate for the most part. I mean, a lot of the stuff we could carry over, like the map design and some other things like that, but the systems specifically were the hardest part to move over. So the reason we made the jump was because they started to release a lot more animation tools and a lot more inverse kinematic systems and stuff like that. So when we originally went with the idea of making the game, we wanted to, because it's worth pointing out, Kinky Fridays is a very small team. We've got 4 developers on Sapphire Safari. We have a very ambitious development cycle for the game. We want to have 60 creatures, species in the game. We want to have male and female variants of them. We want to have a massive island. We want to have all this stuff, right? And we're physically capable of doing it because of the experience that we have. And that means when we design systems, we have to design them in such a way that doesn't add to our workload. So when we design models, for example, every single model has to be capable of using every single animation that we make. So that means they have to share certain things, like they have to share the same skeleton structure. They can't have anything specifically different about them, in order so that we're not having to make small variation animations for every single species that come out. Because in Sapphire Safari right now, we have 41 animations for sex. And if we were to add, I don't know, 3 more creatures to the game that had specifically unique skeletons, we would then have to make, like 180 new animations essentially in order to support those 3 models. So the jump from 4 to 5 mostly represented that we understood that these new mechanics that Unreal Engine was bringing was going to make our lives easier. And for the most part, it kind of did. But like I said earlier, spoiler, they don't have very good documentation when they release new stuff. So it was push and pull a little bit. But we made do with it. In the next patch, we actually moved from Unreal Engine 5.4 to 5.7, mostly so that we can remove completely the need to work on Blender, which is an animation tool and a modeling tool. And the reason for that is because when you import an animation from Blender, you have to import it to match a skeleton or a rig for wherever you're importing it to. So most sex animations that are 3D that you see on the internet are probably made in Blender or like Source Filmmaker or something along those lines. But they're mostly made in Blender because it's a free tool and it's very powerful, and a lot of animators work with it. But every time that we were importing models, like if we would make an animation, we would have to test it against every single model that we made in order to make sure that there wasn't any inherent importing problems, which is, a lot of work and it's compounding work. But 5.7 allows us to build our own animation tools inside of Unreal that would mimic the workflow for Blender, which means that our animators can work directly inside of Unreal Engine, meaning that we don't have to spend time fixing an import pipeline, essentially. And that was a huge time save. And we're only just now scratching the surface for that. So that's the main reason why we update, is because we find something that increases our productivity. And that is the risk of importing old stuff that might not longer work versus the process of increasing our productivity, essentially. Long answer, I know, but that's the reason.
That's great. There's so many technical aspects to it. I mean, I have no skills in this area, so it's interesting to just kind of hear someone with a lot of experience touch on it. Kind of pedaling back just a little bit, you said your team has, I think, 4 people on it. Have you found how have you found hiring people into developing an adult game? Because it is kind of still like a not commonly, I guess, acceptable way to play games. I think I would say, like, it's still kind of taboo. So have you had any like good experiences or bad experiences with that?
Well, I mean, taboo is kind of an interesting idea because Sapphire Safari has like 1.6 million registered users on it. So at this point, I think it's like a little bit more accepted than it used to be. But I get the crux of the question. So originally when we started, I've been working with the team that I've been working with for maybe 5 years before we made the jump over. You know, I made the new company and I hired them in. They started making stuff, and you know, that was a little easier because we've worked together before. But specifically when it comes to hiring new people, originally it was kind of like being the shady guy on the corner. You know, like you'd like, hey, come here, I'll let you work from home and you won't have to deal with the big corporations anymore, you know? And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds good, you know? But here's the thing. How are you with genitalia, you know? Because you'll be working with a lot of genitalia now. Like, so, you know, there was definitely a lot of moments where I took someone from a stable job, like a bank, right? And then I brought them over and I gave them a full-time salary, and they just got to keep their own hours and work from home. And they're just like, okay, it's nice, but at the same time, it's like, what have I done? You know, like these days it's a lot easier. And when it comes to like the creative side, and when I say creative, I mean like animators and modelers and that sort of stuff, you kind of need to hire people that are already doing that stuff, because it's a little harder to say, oh, this guy's worked on all these cool games, but he's never made an adult model before, because there are complexities that I don't want to sit down and like lecture them on how to fix, if that makes sense. So when it comes to that aspect, I generally work with people that have established themselves as already working on stuff. Like we're working with Cunningham, who's quite big in the adult space, and we're also working with Wig Fritter as well, who's also very prolific when it comes to furry animations on the internet, especially around Twitter and stuff. So when it comes to that, we hire from Twitter when they have an existing body of work that we can look at and go, yeah, okay, that'll work well for what we need. And in both cases, these were just standard animators that were mostly making money off Patreon. And we brought them into the sphere of making video games, if that makes sense. And there's the pipeline for making animations for adult games versus just making an animation is quite different, right? Like, you need to think about a lot of different things. And, you know, like I said, we're working with both of them now to bring them over to work directly inside of Unreal. And they like it. They like that pipeline, and it's just a matter of teaching them about the engine and how to work it and that sort of stuff, as opposed to teaching them about anatomy and what a knot on a penis looks like, like so.
It's really interesting because at NLT we have Jareel, who was hired because he worked on his own adult game, decided he didn't actually like building video games, but he enjoyed animation, which is why he joined the NLT's team. And we also have Ramsey Sheep, who comes from a background of Disney. He worked at a Canadian TV studio. His job went because of COVID, and he just happened to stumble into the community and said, "Hey, I'm an animator. Is there any work for me here? I'll accept what comes with it." And at the start, he was very much like, I would like to work on the safe for work scenes because we have story scenes, and he wanted to do that. And now he's just like, okay, just give it to me. I'll do anything you want. And he's even come up with his own little ideas and fun little things like that. I do hope in the future, especially the way that we won't talk about AI because we talk about it every episode, and it's, I'm sure the listeners are probably getting a little bit sick of it. As AI does start to dominate some of the TV and movie industry stuff, especially when it comes to like the kids' animations and stuff like that, hopefully we see some of these great skilled animators open their mind a little bit, and just so they make themselves a little bit more approachable as well, because it is really hard to find great skilled people in this. You said you started a new company and you brought your ex co-workers or co-workers over with you. What gave you the idea to jump to adult gaming?
This one's going to be a long answer because it requires a little bit of understanding. But so back in 2010, I was working with a couple of gentlemen from Australia, and we were running a website called IndieDB and ModDB, and we wanted to start selling video games and stuff like that. So we made a platform called Desura, this was before Steam had early access and all that sort of stuff. So we were basically laying the groundwork for building a platform for independent developers to sell their products on. And we ended up pushing a lot of helping a lot of developers and stuff like that. Like we helped Project Zomboid get their start on the platform and some other places like that. Like it was a really successful platform. And one of the things I wanted to try and build was reaching out to Japan and the Asian countries and stuff like that, and bring over their products and just sell them ad hoc, right, without any sort of localization or translation services and that sort of stuff. Because back then it was physically impossible to purchase that sort of stuff. And part of that business sort of thinking about that sort of business meant that I was exposed to the adult gaming scene from Japan, which was insane. So that was kind of like one of those moments where I realized that there was some sort of business that could be made in that space. And ever since then, I've just been essentially helping other businesses find avenues to make income from relating to gaming and indie gaming and that sort of stuff. Down from publishing, porting, you name it. I've stuck my thumb in that pie before. And I was given the opportunity to make a business, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to do adult gaming because it is a new market, like an emerging market. And I wanted to step into that space and see what could be done. And that was in 2019. So basically that was where that whole process started. And now I've forgotten the question. Oh my God. What was the question again? Sorry.
What made you start? What made you jump to adult gaming?
Yeah, well, there you go. That I mean, that's the answer. It was mostly I had this mindset of being able to formulate new business. And in 2019, there was a lot of, I don't know if you remember, there was a lot of product on Steam that was basically shovelware, right? So people, like, the space was filled, and it still is to this day, kind of. There's not a lot of professionals in the adult space, I will say. There's a lot of hobbyists, a lot of people that really like one particular aspect about adult gaming, about a adult piece of content, like for example, feet or breast milk or whatever, and they make a game that's just that, for example. So I would count those as like hobbyist people that really like a particular fetish. And in 2019, it was dominated by cheap puzzle games and visual novels, right? Like those were the things, because you'd find that the people who made those types of games were really passionate about that fetish, but they didn't have the skills needed to make a fully fledged game out of it, right? So they turned to like the RPG Maker game engines. They turned to Game Maker game engines. The stuff which is like the WYSIWYG editors and whatnot. The stuff that's a little easier to make. So when we got started, the business ethos for the company was take what people expect, which is the jigsaw puzzle games, or the puzzle games, and then just refine the absolute buggery out of it and make something really good and really worthwhile within that space. And that's how we came to our first product, which is the Pieces of My Heart. And it's a jigsaw puzzle game, but it's fully voiced, and I would consider it to be premium product. And it resonated with a lot of people, and that set us up to make some really bigger games, much bigger games because of that. So, yeah.
Nice. You've worked across like multiple genres of games. So this is like a two-piece question. How would you describe Kinky Fridays as a studio in terms of genre? And with moving between them, do you do that just out of creative curiosity, market testing, or interest within the team?
It's purely business decision. Like I hate to come across like that, but it's it basically is. Like we look at what's available right now. We look at what we can do as a small team. We don't try and overshoot. I mean, he says on the 5th year of making a photography game, right? But we try not to overshoot when it comes to developing a product, and we mostly just see what works. So at the beginning, we didn't know what worked, right? We were just kind of throwing stuff around, see what kind of results we would get from the space. There's a lot of guessing on my part because while I knew a lot about the industry as a whole, the adult stuff was mostly the customers were mostly focused on things that I couldn't explain at the time, if that makes sense. What people wanted and what people purchased was running counter to my experience, if that makes sense. So I didn't really know too much. Obviously now I like to believe that I understand the space quite a lot. But even now, like there are some games that just defy reason. Like I don't understand how or why, but I'm not surprised at this point, if that makes sense. So when it comes to building the products that we see, I would say that in the future, the games that we're going to be working on are definitely going to be a lot more focused in variety. Like I've just made a second company right now, or not right now, like a couple months ago. The company is primarily going to focus on building furry products, like furry video games, purely with no human characters or anything like that. And that's mostly because I found the space that is like quite interesting to work in. The furry community is both really, really hungry for content, and like there's so much of it that's just, I don't know what would be the word here. There's so much of it that is simple. There's not a lot of like really in-depth products in the furry space. I mean, there's a lot of it in like the safer workspace, but not so much of it in the adult space. And while I'm not promising I'll stay entirely in the adult space, like I think this new company will have the ability to make an adult product and make a safer work product. But when it comes to building a company focused on making one type of game, that's what this new one is going to be. Kinky Fridays has definitely been a learning experience for sure. And I feel like what Kinky Fridays represents right now is mostly just a collection of cool games, that we over polish for some reason.
Yeah, there's so much. Every question you answer, I've got like 7 different like follow-up questions in my head, and I've got to pick one. We've seen a lot of backlash from Steam, MasterCard, Visa, YouTube. I've been talking to Annie at Sex Positive Gaming. We had Tom from Adult Game Review on the last episode of the podcast. They've both talking to me about YouTube and what you can and what you cannot say. And, one of the big themes that you're obviously trying to push and promote and, supply healthy growth to, which is the furry community. And you literally cannot say furry on YouTube and have a monetized video. It will just get taken down in seconds. There's never be an ad run on that channel video, and it will be shadow banned, and you'll get less views. It's just the way it is. What would you like to see from platforms like Steam, Patreon, Itch, YouTube, in a way to supporting adult devs better?
I think Steam is doing a fantastic job, to be honest with you, supporting devs. I would say it is so. As an adult, as a game developer in general, one of the best things you can do is learn to understand the platforms that you're trying to sell on. And what I mean by that is Steam is very good, and you can make a very good amount of money on Steam, but you have to understand the platform. Yeah, the tools are there, you can use them. I would say that Steam has been very, very good at supporting adult game developers, to the point where, like, you would think that pages like Itch, for example, Itch is run by like 2 people, and they should be a lot more flexible. But in reality, they are not. They are very bad at supporting adult game developers, I would say, to the point where I would even say that it's just not worthwhile being on Itch anymore, given how much work you have to do in order to get that to, be something that can support you. So, in all honesty, what I would like to see these platforms do is, if they're worried about, MasterCard and all that sort of stuff out there, these payment providers, which, ultimately control them, you need to start supporting high-risk payment options, right? These are the payment providers that have no problem supporting adult websites. Lingerie websites exist. Adult toys, physical toys exist. And, cannabis sellers, gambling, online gambling, all that sort of stuff. These are all considered high-risk business accounts, and they need high-risk payment providers in order to support them. These platforms, for whatever reason, do not have high-risk payment options. And if they did, I can guarantee you everything would be fine. There wouldn't be all of this like hubbub about, Itch had to pull this down because of MasterCard. It's like, okay, if you classify yourself as an adult game and you want to sell on Itch, you can only use these payment options. Because right now, when you're on Itch, as a developer, you have to either use Itch's payment services, which, as a developer, if you're wanting to make actual good money on Itch, it is possible, right? It is possible to make really good income on Itch. I mean, before all of this stuff happened, obviously. Like now it's kind of almost impossible, but you would need to use your own payment providers. So you would have to bring PayPal or Stripe, right? Those are the 2 options. Those are the only 2 options that Itch made available to you. And very early on in our development process, we lost PayPal, right? As you can imagine, we lost PayPal. So that means that the only options available to us on itch to make these payments was credit card. And a lot of people don't want to buy adult products with credit card. That's what PayPal was for. PayPal was like the anonymous, I'm buying something on the internet kind of vibe sort of platform.
Yeah.
So I would say when we lost PayPal, we lost probably close to 1/3 of our income from itch. And very recently, I say recently, it was like last year, we lost Stripe in the whole Kajiggy thing going on there. And they're like, okay, your account is still available on Stripe. You just can't transact through Stripe anymore. I was like, okay, fine. So on itch, we actually had no payment options available to us because for whatever reason, itch also never described why, but they stopped allowing us to use their itch payment platform as well. So we had no way of doing that, doing any sort of transaction on itch. You know, we went from making a livable wage on for the entire team on itch to making nothing over the course of like a month. And all of that could be avoided if they just had another payment option available to them. The same thing goes for Steam. A lot of this whole pressure from Steam could have been avoided if they just said, okay, these guys can just, we have other payment options available for adult content, you know? And that would have been a non-issue. But, you know, these are the times we live in where like a credit card company can essentially say, hey, we don't like our logo being on your website that supports this type of game. So if you don't want us anymore to support your website, you have to unsupport these games. And it's like, oh man, shit show. You know?
It's very messy. I know that some of the developers, mainly more in the Eastern world, where they have like petite characters, have had games pulled from Steam because Steam are like, oh, they're petite, so they're a child, so that's that, and Steam's not really giving them any way. And I know one developer had to argue about a penis size because Steam said it was too animal-like to be in their game, and it's all messy over there. On the flip side, do you have any advice to adult developers on how to get their games out there in a safe and, you know, developer safe, monetary way?
Yeah, they're not going to like the answer. You have to make games for the platforms you want to sell on. That's it. Like, you can't make the 3,000-year-old Lola game and expect to sell it on Steam. Like, just don't do that. Make better games for Steam. That's it. That's the only way you can, like, you don't see, like, the biggest problem I have with developers is like, oh, but, you know, it's in college. It's like, yeah, but you're just saying it's in college. It's clearly not just college. You know what I mean? Like, anytime that there is like a hubbub of a developer being like, oh, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but you're intentionally showing things and saying another thing, right? Like,
they're trying to blur the lines.
Yeah, exactly, right? Just don't do that. Make a product that's available on Steam because you know the rules of Steam, so just stay within them. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. That's all you have to do. Just don't be silly bugger. If you want to sell on Steam, they are the wardens. So you have to make games that work for Steam. Like, if you want to do whatever you want, there are websites for that, like DL Site and stuff like that, right? Those platforms notorious for letting whatever you want on them, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to sell on Steam, you got to play by their rules, and like, don't try and like make a big deal out of it or anything like that. But the answer is just, you got to work with Steam. That's it. And Steam are very communicative, right? Like, I talk to Steam every couple of months about the stuff we're doing, and there's no problems. So just talk to them, make the game that works, and yeah, don't worry about it.
Obviously, you can't operate in the gray, is what you're saying. Be kind of black and white and clear with what you're wanting to make, especially with Steam as a platform because they have set expectations, because they are such a big platform. Now, with building gameplay experiences, do you like to do that with adult elements layered into your gameplay experiences, or do you enjoy adult concepts being built around your game mechanics, at least now at this point in time, because obviously things have changed over your experience and time developing games. So where are you at with that?
So you just described the holy grail of adult game development. So one of the hardest things you can do as an adult game developer is the marriage of mechanics and systems with adult content. So the whole purpose of adult content is to be titillating, and the moment you add any sort of like weird context to that, you start to get like the weird middle ground of things not really working. Like case in point, like combat, right? You can't really have a video game where you shoot an enemy and then you have sex with them. I mean, you can, but
well,
in the context of an adult product, it doesn't really make sense, right? Like, because on one hand, you're building a game around like gun violence and gun combat, and then on the other hand, you're rewarding the player with adult content, right? So that doesn't really work, because at least in my eyes, it doesn't really work, because I mean, sure, you can have a game where what's called, I mean, I don't know if it's the actual term, but it's the term I've been using internally, which is called gore, which is game over rape, right? Where you lose and then you see a scene. But if you think about that mechanically, in order for the player to get what they want from your video game, they need to lose. So what you see, and this is pretty prolific when it comes to like Metroidvanias or side scrollers or whatever, right? Or even like adventure games, right? Players want to see an adult scene, so they get to a point, they see a new creature, something or an enemy that they've never seen before, and they intentionally lose. They see the scene, they go, cool, that was good. And then they reload and they go back and then they beat that enemy and they continue. Right? Like that's the sort of gameplay that a player goes through. Making a video game where the reward is being good at the game and then also getting the titillating scenes at the same time, very difficult to conceptualize, very difficult to build. And that sort of content is like super duper hard to build. And that's where like something like Sapphire Safari does extremely well, because the agency of the player is around, peeping Tom, essentially, right? So you're going out of your way to remain hidden in order to capture scenes of intimacy. And it works really well for a gameplay mechanic, because you get rewarded for doing well at essentially peeping Tom, right? And there are failure states in the game, obviously, because every good game needs a failure state, which is where if a predator catches you, they have their way with you, and then you lose whatever photos you've got on your camera at the time. But when it comes to the actual marriage of video game and sex, I try my best to do it. And for the next company, which is called Smashhound, we have another product coming up pretty soon. I say soon; it's an early prototype that has a really, really, really good marriage of the two. And I'm not going to say what it is, because it's still in early development, and I kind of want to keep our cards close to our chest a little bit. But I will say, when I conceptualized this, and when we put it through prototyping, it was like being struck on the head with a lightning bolt, because it just worked flawlessly. And that doesn't happen very often. Like I've written game design documents for hundreds of games for adult content, right? And it's never happened as easy as it has for the product that we're prototyping at the moment. Other than that, though, it's if you can do that, I can guarantee you people will enjoy that product immensely.
We had NLT on a couple of episodes back, but we also opened up the podcast with him, and we asked him a question that I think will probably work quite well with you as well. We asked him if he's had an idea for a game that he would love to do, but he just doesn't think that he could do, or he doesn't have the time, or he doesn't have the team to do it. And he come up with a Doom style game where instead of having like a finisher move, it's a sexual finisher move, and he would love to see what that would look like, because he loves that like Doom franchise as a series of games.
I mean, that's already been done. What the hell?
Has it? What is that?
Yeah. It's there's a Doom mod where it has all that stuff in it.
Oh, I think he was on about like an actual pure game, but not a mod. I did not know about that. That's pretty cool.
It's called H Doom. Yeah. It's called H Doom. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I'll have to send it to him and let him know.
And it has the finishers, has everything. Like, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Has there been a game that you've written out and you were like, this would be really cool, but this is just too much?
My unicorn is like, so when it comes to building games, I love gun games. I like games with weapons in them. I like essentially the gun porn games, the ones where it's like the actual animations for and mechanics of using a firearm in a game is incredibly detailed and really nice, right? Love those types of games, like the slow motion combat, blah blah blah. But I think one of the best products that I will never be able to make, because I just don't have the team for it, and if we attempted to make it, it would be quite bad, because we would need to learn a whole bunch of new skills in order to get it working, would be something like a Fallout style game where like agency is on the player, and there's like visceral combat, but then there's also mechanics around growth and progression. And to answer your question, yes, I have written this bloody game on paper, but I know for a fact that the failure points of this game, of the design for us as a team, not necessarily the design of the game itself, would be making the gunplay actually interesting, right? Because that is the hardest part, right? And like you see it, like Bethesda releases Fallout, and then it takes years, and then modders just pick over absolutely everything for the game, and then they make it perfect, right? So when you play a Bethesda game or a Fallout game or whatever, you mod it. You go and you mod it, because it's like, you know what the base game is like, and it's not perfect, but modders make it perfect. And the amount of people that have spent time and energy building that and perfecting it is not something that we will be able to do as a team, because of just time, right? Time and skill and the labor required to make something like that would be out of our wheelhouse right now. Maybe in 10 years or 5 years, maybe it might be a different story, but at least right now, that is the case. I know people that I could hire to bring on to do that. Absolutely, I do. But as a team right now, we wouldn't be able to build it. So we're just not going to.
I'm happy to let you go, Billy.
I'm trying to figure out where we should pivot to now. I mean, Davey brought up earlier about a couple of your earlier access projects, not seeing updates in a while, and if you wanted to just offer some insights on that in terms of maybe what you do differently and what the plans are for the future.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there's two products that we have right now that considered in stasis a little bit. First, we have Eluda. Eluda was like our first attempt at like moving into a 3D space after we made Pieces of My Heart. And so this one's a little complicated because it's we tried to do Binding of Isaac essentially for the game. And the game as content wise, it's done, right? You can go from start to finish, you can finish the game. It's all there. What it needs in order to be a good game is a lot more care and reworking and that sort of stuff. Because essentially the plan was we release this game now so that when my kid is born, I don't have to stress about releasing a game in the same time frame as my wife giving birth, right? And when we launched that game, we were working with a publisher called Critical Bliss. And, Ryan's a really good dude. Love him to bits. Great man. But his audience is very Asian focused, right? And what killed the game for us, like it literally halted production of the game, was that for some reason they thought that we were going to launch with localization in China, Taiwan, Japan, that sort of stuff, right? We didn't have that. And it literally, like, from the very launch of the game, it was like dead in the water, essentially. And I could not justify working on a product. Yeah, this is the other thing that game developers in general just kind of need to know, that I couldn't justify working on that game for much longer because the sales were just not matching the development time and salaries that need to go into making a video game. So we made the decision, or I made the decision, to effectively freeze that product and then move on to working on Sapphire Safari. So the same team that made Eluda is making Sapphire Safari right now. And the reason why we're not making Eluda right now is because we're hard at work making Sapphire Safari. We do have plans to go back and essentially remaster that game. And we would have to remaster it because the animator and modeler that we're working with essentially is a very bad person. And we literally can't upgrade the game anymore without his blessing. So we would have to make an entirely new product. So if we did do that, the plan would be to essentially give all the customers, and there's not that many because, like I said, the game stopped being profitable like from day one, right? Give all the customers that we have, all the couple hundred that we have, and essentially just give them access to the new product, essentially, when and if that releases. Under contract, on the other hand, is so Kinky Fridays, we work on currently 3 games right now, and each game has its own team. So those team members don't mingle between each product. Under contract has only ever had one developer on the team. So it's made by one guy. And, I come in and I help out with all the stuff that he can't do, like script writing, all that sort of stuff. So he's just been plugging away at this game for a while now. And we are 90% done with the next update, which is a big content patch for the game. And we're getting close to finalizing that game, actually. So I would say maybe another couple, like 8 months or so, and we would have the game fully done. It's just one of those products where, like, we got to the point where the development of the game was essentially done, and it's mostly just a content problem at this point. And content is pretty difficult to do in a game like a puzzle game. So yeah, it's the most expensive part as well. So that's why there's been a slowdown there. But yeah, under contract is we are going to finish that game, and we're pretty close to getting a really big patch out. And yeah, as for Wet Nightmares, I mean, that's our publishing game. So we're publishing that with for another developer, and he just takes a long time to make art, and like I have had to remake that game a bunch of times because he made it himself in Visual Novel Maker, and then we ported it over to Ren'Py, and I brought in another developer to help him speed things up. And it's his the dream game that he wanted to make, essentially, right? So he's spending a long time making art for it and building all the art that he needs, and it's just taking a long time to do. But there is a patch that we released a couple of weeks ago. which is like a beta patch essentially. We just wanted to keep everyone updated on, you know, how that's coming together. It means that people that want to experience, because it's a visual novel, right? So if you go to the beta, you'll just see sketches at some point because it's the blocking content for it is all that we managed to patch. And then as we patch in the beta content, we're releasing the final assets on top of the previous builds. And yeah, it's just coming together really slowly.
Has any of like the Steam reviews or people posting this product is abandoned, has that like affected the team at all, or is it like bad PR, and how do you manage that and try and like manage the team as well?
I think the best way is transparency. So anytime someone asks me a question about it, I'm like, yeah, no, these are the reasons why we're not working on it anymore. Or this is what we're doing right now. And, you know, like I try and be as transparent as possible. It's not really, my job is to mostly separate that from the development stuff, like so that they don't feel that if there's any pressure, and there shouldn't be, right? There shouldn't be any pressure. And a lot of customers are understanding of that. There are some people that you know, are asking where it is, and I'm like, yeah, no, these are the updates, and you know, this is our progress, and things are being made. It is an early access product, and that comes with the territory, right? So we're not trying to hide these things at all. And if people want to buy into that, given everything that's there, and you know, we basically just try and be as transparent as possible.
We can tell from this podcast that you're very happy and very open in that, and when you also stream on Twitch and you do a weekly Q&A with your community, and I was watching a couple of your VODs and you are very transparent and open as that. How have you found doing Twitch streams as a way of talking and working with your community?
So we used to do them on Discord. And you know, I'm like a partnered streamer on Twitch, right? Like a long time ago, I got partnered, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then I stopped and started making games again. And one of the things that we wanted to do was because we've got so many like products, right? We've got so many products, and we've got so many platforms and stuff like that. And one of the things I wanted to do was make short form content that is safe and approachable for those platforms. So like YouTube and TikTok and all that sort of stuff. And part of what needed to happen there was taking the Q&A stuff from Discord, putting it onto Twitch, and giving a face to the voice essentially. So I wasn't a VTuber before this point, but like I said earlier, we have so many customers now that I kind of wanted to have a little bit of anonymity to the products that I'm making. So that's really the only reason why I have a VTuber model. But it has been helpful to make short form content. And it is kind of like something that we've been working with Infernozilla for. Like it was kind of like a mixture there of like an idea to create content that would help with that. Because part of the platform that we want to build is, you know, we're building a second business now. You know, we've also got the web novel that I'm writing as well, which is adult focused too. The idea is we're moving into mixed media essentially, and trying our best to sort of build a platform where we can promote all of those products at once, as opposed to focusing it on just one product. The majority of the questions are for Sapphire Safari, obviously, because it's like the most popular product we have. But, you know, a lot of that content will be helpful at promoting other stuff when the time comes. So
Great. Shifting to Sapphire Safari, with the roadmap that's been presented, a main quest is planned. So I guess the question is like, how story rich are you planning to make the game, or do you kind of see it more thriving on its gameplay loop?
Well, I mean, the plan is to have 8 hours of main quest line with the gameplay loop. This is kind of like the whole problem with game development in an open world subject, right? We wanted to get onto early access. In order to make it a reality, we needed to focus on the core components which would drive sales for the product, which is the collection aspect. And that's not what we expect. Like, let's say we have the game, it's fully done, right? We're not developing it anymore. A new player comes in, they buy the game. Our expectation is they play the main storyline and then they do 20% of the side content. And that's it. That's their experience with the product, right? So to put in perspective, we have right now, like, I want to say 120,000 words for the script. It's all fully voiced right now. And we haven't implemented it into the game. And we recorded the dialogue like 2 years ago because the focus for the product is we want to build the systems for the game first. Like for us, the thriving world, the photography mechanics are what would keep players engaged and keep them playing after the main storyline is done. So that's why we're focusing on that first. Like perspective wise, right now we're making a system where the creatures in the world are permanent. Because right now in the game, when you see a creature, we're actually tricking the player because wherever the player walks, we just teleport creatures around you. We're not they're not actually like existing in the space permanently. So the next update that we're doing is focused on. Do you guys know what A Life is from the Stalker series?
I have not played the Stalker series, no.
Okay, so A Life in the Stalker series is the game will give an NPC an objective, and then the NPC will go about their business, and then the A Life system will maintain an understanding of where all the NPCs are in the entire world, what they're doing, what they're up to, what their inventory is, blah blah blah. It allows the game to create emergent gameplay where like you'll stumble upon something happening and that's like, oh, that's a named dude that I was supposed to give a quest to and he went out on a quest and got killed, right? And now I can't give the quest in. That's the A-Life system doing that, right? So what we're building right now is a permanent system where the creatures on the island are fixed. So they will go about their business, they'll go to their nest, and then when they wake up in the morning, they'll go on an adventure. They'll go do the stuff that they want to do. They'll bump into each other. They'll do the adult stuff. And then at nighttime, they'll go back to their nest and go back to sleep. And then as the player, you can like sneak into their nest at nighttime and, do all that sort of stuff. And that is a huge, huge system that needs to be created before we can do the main storyline, if that makes sense, right? So when that's done and the rest of the stuff in phase one, that's when we'll work on the narrative content. And what I mean by work on the narrative content, I mean implement the narrative content into the game. Quest lines, side quests, you name it, it's going to be in there. But we also got to implement like gating mechanics. So because it's an open world game, in order to complete the main storyline, you need to go into like the ice biome, for example. But in order to explore the ice biome, you need to get your research level, which is, up to like level 5, so that you can then buy the item, like the weather gear to get into the ice biome sort of thing, right? So that's how the mechanics are going to be based around the main storyline. And that will allow the player to like explore some of the side content in the game, and then hopefully they like it, and then they spend upwards of 30 hours inside of it. But the goal is minimum 8-hour experience via the main storyline, which forces the player to do 15 to 20% of the content in order to experience all of the main narrative.
As someone who played 6 hours of it in one day, I think you're going to smash that 8-hour target. It's a very addictive gameplay loop, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The roadmap you have laid out for Sapphire Safari is rather ambitious. How do you manage the team, and how do you prevent scope creep while keeping momentum?
preventing scope creep is kind of difficult, I would say, in this product. The best way to stop that in a general sense is to design the game fully before you start building it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The problem we had with Sapphire Safari was every single iteration that we made was not fun. So the scope creep came about because of the fact that in order to make the game interesting and engaging and, you know, something the players actually want to sit down and do, we needed to bring in systems. We needed to develop systems. And unfortunately for us, there was no product out there that we could just go, oh, look, there's an open world photography game that everyone absolutely loves. Let's just do that. We couldn't do that because we needed to make our system ourselves. So, for example, the scope creep that I'm talking about, like with the A-Life, the NPC development stuff. For example, we want to build a system where you can put different lenses on the camera, right? So take, for example, the telescopic lens, which is like a really, really long lens, right? That you can take photos from really far away. We couldn't put that in the game right now because NPCs only exist around the player. Like if you were to get really high and look as far as you can, like zoom in all the way with a telescopic lens on the other side of the island, you won't see anything. NPCs do not exist in that space because NPCs only exist around the player. So in order to make a system where we can have a telescopic lens, we need to first reinvent the spawning system, add in a permanent system to the NPCs, optimize the game to the point where we can have 1,000 to 2,000 NPCs on the island at all times, and then we can have a telescopic lens. So that's the problem with the creep, right? Like that's how the creep comes into the game. It's kind of impossible to avoid that when you're developing a game that doesn't have a basis on another product existing in the world. So put in perspective, when we first started making the game, we're like, okay, let's take the Far Cry open world systems and try and develop that. Or let's take the Breath of the Wild like discovery system and try to implement that. Those are things that we can look to and say, this is what worked for them, and we can bring that into the game. But when it comes to making the photography system, the only thing that worked for us was making the camera feel like a gun, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the way that you handle a gun in a video game is the same way that we handle the camera in the video game. So in order to make the photography like element actually exist past like an 8-hour span or window, we needed to allow the player to upgrade the camera. So we've just built a system right now where you can upgrade the camera. And that's brought its own problems, I would say, more creep. But, you know, the system is there and it works. But now we have a shop in the game, and that means players are going to want to buy more than just camera upgrades. So now we have a system for buying costumes, and you know the creep comes because the systems that we need to make camera photography work in a video game just kind of like adds a bunch of possibilities that we just want to explore, and we kind of owe it to the customers to make sure that we implement those.
Can you explain one of the new things which is on your roadmap, which is Showdown, and what that will entail?
Oh, yeah, sure. So we have a rival photographer on the island. Whatever player character you don't choose ends up becoming the rival. So if you pick Jamie, the rival will be Oscar. If you pick Oscar, the rival will be Jamie. Which, by the way, consequently means that the voice actors for Oscar and Jamie needed to voice the entire main script like twice, essentially. So depending on which player you're playing as, right? So that was annoying. But you know, that just, you know, goes into you know, more of the narrative stuff. But the showdown is the rival photographer will offer you side quests where they will give you, within this set region, you have to beat my score with a photo. So it's basically just like you and your rival having a photography battle, which is what we consider like a side quest in the game. Originally, we were going to make it so that one of the rewards you get from doing the showdown is a costume, like a different outfit for your character. But the shop represents a better place to put those sorts of things. So we just need to add in more, probably some sort of weird enemies, rivals to lovers kind of, romance options or something like that. Probably will probably be what we end up going with that. But yeah, it's mostly just like side activities essentially.
That sounds. I need to sync my 6-hour session in. I have the demo loaded, and I am excited to get to it, but my life commitments have been getting a little bit in the way. I guess as a kind of way to wrap things up, because we've talked about different genres, different styles of games, the content that you could put in, the expectations of platforms and developers. In your opinion and with your insights and experience, how can platforms balance allowing creators to explore healthy sexual themes, but still maintain clear guidelines?
I mean, it depends what you define to be healthy, like sex stuff, right? Because
That's
like,
fair.
Yeah.
honestly, I think Steam handles it pretty bloody good, to be honest with you. Like there's that whole argument online about, oh, it's just fiction and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, sure, but at the same time, as a platform that wants to grow and build an audience that allows developers to, make a product that can be sold to that audience, you kind of need to understand that some of that stuff is just not ever going to be okay to sell, right? Like,
Yeah.
like just as a reality of the situation, like you hear about all these people like, oh, blah blah blah. It's like, but at the same time, if you actually look at the product that Steam removes, it's questionable at best whether or not that's a product that should be sold to like a mass audience, right? Because in terms of how difficult it is to access that content on Steam, it's stupid easy. It's one checkbox, right? So anyone can access that content really, really simply. And in order to make a safe, if the question was to make a safe environment for developers to explore that stuff, the answer is like, if you are keen on a particular fetish as a developer and you want to really, really make a go about being a developer, you owe it to yourself to understand where you can sell that product first. That's the reality of the situation. Like if you want to sell like BDSM stuff, you need to know where that audience is. You need to spend the time on the internet talking to people in forums, working out the places that people go to buy that content. And once you've worked out how to do that, then you can go ahead and make the game, right? If you're just going to make it and then release it, anywhere can do that. Like itch can do that, right? You'll be able to sell that kind of, right? But if you want to actually build the content that you want to make a living off of, or you want to turn it from a hobby into a profession, like you have to give up something, unfortunately. Like there's not going to be any space where you both have access to 45 million customers and then also, be able to make whatever you want.
Yeah.
So.
You've spoken very eloquently about market research, which is an aspect we haven't actually had from any of our conversations when it comes to adult devs. We've spoke to a couple of them now, and you've spoken the most about, doing your due diligence, going out, finding out information, finding about research. You must be pouring in hours and hours into that.
Oh yeah. So if it's not obvious already, I do not make the games at Kinky Fridays. My process is to make sure the games can sell, right?
Yeah.
Like that is my entire job. my entire profession is based around the fact that I understand the platforms that we sell on. And being able to sell on those platforms is the most important thing. Like more important than the polish of the game. I mean, that's very important, sure, but the most important thing is being able to support development of the product to begin with, because otherwise you'll end up with an incomplete product that never sells. And I obviously have had my failures at that. Everyone does. But you need to, it's market research is probably one of the most important things ever. And like I said, there's a lot of, I hate to say the word, but there's a lot of bleeding hearts in the adult space. A lot of people making games because, I really like this, or I really want to build this. And one of the more frequent things that I see is, like there's a couple games, like I think like Whole House and some other things like that, which take intellectual properties from like anime and games and stuff like that, and they put those characters into their game, and then all of a sudden they're just like, well, why can't I sell this game on Steam? It's like, you need to understand that you can't just do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can't make a game about Luna from Hazbin Hotel. Oh, is that Hazbin Hotel? Anyway, you can't make a game about Luna and then sell it somewhere else because it's someone else's intellectual property, right? The same thing goes with, you can't take the stuff from The Sims and then put that into your game because it's someone else's intellectual property. Or, you can't just build a game and get like 1,000 wish lists on Steam and then sell it and hope for the best, right? Like these are the sorts of things you need to sit down and understand about the platform and stuff. So I would almost say that the most important thing is, if you have the capacity to make a video game, you owe it to yourself to spend a little bit more time trying to make something from it,
Yeah. To follow on with that, how has it been working with Infernozilla as an addition to, having that market reach and their input and intellect?
It's been very good. Like part of like my whole understanding of market, like I've worked with marketing teams before in the past for like safe work stuff and whatnot. And I would honestly say that a lot of that stuff kind of doesn't work out because the process of working with a marketing team and what you want as a developer don't necessarily align. So with Infernozilla, it was kind of the opposite because what we needed to grow as a adult developer kind of was within the wheelhouse a little bit more for what Infernozilla covers. So stuff like being able to create a community that would allow us to get feedback on the products that we have, being able to reach out to additional companies for creating new business like R&D stuff, being able to create a marketing platform on X. I was about to say Twitter, but it's not Twitter anymore. It's X.
Everyone knows what you mean.
And yeah, everyone knows what you mean. Yeah, and being able to like take that workload off of my shoulders, because again, we are a small team, and making sure that the game stays relevant in people's minds and stuff like that is very difficult because in adult space, there's not a lot of space to do that, right? You have like ads, and then you have like 2 social media platforms. And then the rest of the time you kind of have to like try and build as an effective platform as you can using those spaces. And I would say it has been immensely helpful given the fact that they know those platforms so well. And we are doing a lot of experimentation. Like we are making the short form content. We are trying to push into spaces that don't necessarily want us there, just to see how well we can do it. And I would say that's primarily because there are people on the Infernozilla team that I'm working with that know how to do that. And that's a pretty useful tool in my eyes.
Yeah. That's exactly what this podcast is all about, and we give short form content to Danko and let him go do his magical work. And any decision that me and Billy want to talk about, it gets run through Paranoid, and we're having constant conversations with them as well. They give us so much insight and skill. And for example, we had a bugs reporting issue, and Paranoid helped us build a Trello, and we've been using that Trello ever since, and it's a lot better system for us. So yeah, I can't say enough thanks to them.
Henley, we want to thank you from Kinky Fridays for joining us on this episode. My mind is like mush now because I've just learnt and taken in so much stuff from the insights that you've provided us. So thank you very much for joining us. Davey, do you have any?
I was sitting here and just half wishing we had NLT with us as a fellow developer to talk more developer with you, because I think that would be a great conversation. Maybe that's something we can set up in the future, to have two developers who do very different, but you can talk more technical with each other. Henley, can you just shout out all your links and where people can find you and support you and your great teams?
Sure. The easiest way to support us is to go to www.KinkyFridays.com. All the relevant links and whatnot are over there. Go buy my games, go support us, and that sort of stuff. We have a web novel that's coming out, and we have more games coming out, and all that sort of stuff. We got lots of stuff in the future for sure. So we're always trying new stuff, doing interesting things. So yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that was an excellent interview. We'd like to thank Henley for coming on and joining us. I'd like to thank Danko once again from our little agency team for helping us arrange that as well. I just asked Danko, have you got any contacts? And he found me a contact. And it was very smooth and lovely. And that, Billy, I think that's going to be that for this one. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
If you're curious, check out Sapphire Safari on Steam.
Play the demo.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts for us, as always, drop a comment, hit us up in the Discord, in the Love Potion Podcast channel. If you have your Patreon role, if you're a public listener, you're more than welcome to PM us as well. The more feedback and the more discussion that we get, the merrier.
Hit like, hit subscribe, check out all the socials, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.
Bye-bye.